All right. Well, it's my privilege to introduce Martin Reeves to us now. He is our chief executive, because we all live in, well, most of us here, there's one or two from outside of the county, but Martin started as chief executive for the county council just earlier in the year, and it's just a real privilege to have you with us this morning. We're really glad that you're here. We're really glad that we'll hear the bigger picture from you. I'll take no more of your time. Your slides are all on here, so you happy to start? Over to you. Can I give you this?
You can. You're giving me control? Really? We've never met, have we? Thank you for inviting me. How are we all? Let me just tell you my story of getting here today. And you need to tell me who's responsible for road infrastructure in Oxfordshire. So if anyone can find who they are, they need to come and see me afterwards. A34 completely gridlocked. Luckily, I always carry a fold-up bike in my boots. So I'd already said that I might be a bit late. I had to drop my daughter off for Duke of Edinburgh. But so the last 4.5 miles was on a bike. And I'm getting hotter and hotter. But anyway, I'm here, so it's wonderful. Thank you for being with you. It's genuinely my privilege, actually. And it's great to see a few faces here that I've known and already my 3 months. I thought before I get into some slides, and there's a lot of detail in here, David is in the audience. He's the expert on all the stuff I'm going to be sharing. So if you need to ask any technical questions, David will do it in the break. But I did want to just go through a few slides. Before I get into that, maybe if we're okay, I don't know how long I've got. We're going to talk. Okay, so I'll speak for 15 minutes or so, and then maybe get into a question and answer thing. So what I thought I might do is talk a little bit about, 2 minutes on the global context as I see it, and you can say that I've over-dramatised or not, but I just wanted to start there. I then want to say, bear in mind, it literally is 100 days. And people talk about 100 days being important when you start something new. Not quite sure where that 100 days comes from, but I'm 100 days in. So I thought I just might reflect on what I found with people, because we're a people organisation, we're a place-based organisation at the County Council. And what I found about the County Council, what I found about the city and the county. And again, it's my own findings. I've shared them openly because I'm an incredibly candid individual, and people can decide if they agree with them or not, and it starts a conversation. And I'll talk a little bit about a story, because we need a story in Oxford and Oxfordshire. And again, it might help provoke some thoughts later on. So I'll do that at the beginning. I'll whip through the slides, and hopefully all that will make sense. Is that okay? Yeah. Globally, so I've been doing public service stuff and been genuinely privileged to do it for getting on for 2.5 decades now in various places, London, most recently for literally 15 years up in Coventry. I have never known a situation where globally, right down to a hyper-local level, which only really, really matters to us about where people, as we've already heard, live their lives, often in quite challenging circumstances every day. I have simply, over that period, so 23 years, I have never seen such a febrile, fractured, challenging global picture right the way down to that hyper-local. And I'm an optimist. And I just wanted to paint that as a picture of, if you think about I can't see everyone, the geopolitical changes, the environmental challenges which have led to mass displacement of our friends and colleagues from around the world out of their homes and then finding new places of sanctuary. I'm not going to make too many comments on the broader politics, but significant loss of trust, particularly, but not exclusively, young people in what we might call the political establishments. Across the world, actually, the war in the Ukraine, and having to welcome and say hello to our friends from Ukraine, but remember already having for many years in this place said hello and given a warm welcome and a new home for our friends and colleagues from Syria, Afghanistan, and many other countries from around the world. I have never seen a situation where financially, in terms of the global markets, the economy has been so turbulent. I'm an economist, that's my frame, I'm always interested in that. Why do I say all of this? I use an analogy, and it might not work for you, I'm just a picture person. I talk about the notion of a pinball machine. Now, for those youngsters in the audience, it's all digital now, but the old traditional arcade game of pinball machine, if you can just visualise it, very, very colourful. You pull back at high velocity, and then a ball bearing goes around. Right? So my view about this global position, right down to how families are living very challenging lives at a hyper-local level, is that is constant ricochet, it's constant potential collateral damage within that. And people, all of us, personally, professionally, but particularly all of our families that we care for, are in this pinball machine, which is really high velocity, high change all the time. The politics, as I say, the cost of living crisis, how do I find a way through? And remember, those poverty lines, and we'll talk a little about it in some of the stats, have actually raised themselves quite significantly across our areas, which then peaks, quite frankly, and I'm a very candid person, the consciousness of policymakers and politicians in ways that I've never seen actually in my time as a public servant, and quite right too, because that guilty noise, as I called it, has to provoke change. This is simply unacceptable to say, because we've got such a globally challenging situation right the way down to our local place, that it has to be like that. This is, everyone, not inevitable. It is not acceptable for us to see some of these manifest challenges and changes which actually split our communities in unequal parts and allows disparity to define us in ways that maybe people in this room aren't quite aware of as we sit here in Oxford and Oxfordshire. So, but I'm an optimist, because in that is the power of people and the power of faith and hope within that, for renewal, for reimagination, for us thinking about how can we think about our assets and our people, even sometimes living very challenging lives, to connect together and look at those loneliness statistics. You need to weep inwardly to think about the loss of contact that people have had pre-pandemic, through the pandemic, and the need for love and connection. So I believe there is massive hope in all of that, but it will not, I use phrases, they're not very elegant, and colleagues have heard me already in County Council. I talk about this stuff, right, is not a virtual reality, it's a contact sport. Every day is about rewiring and reimagining and renewing, connecting people with each other and with networks in an ecosystem that will make that change happen. So that's the global bit. I promise I'll get faster. Is this all right? Does it kind of work roughly? If it isn't, you can just go. I'll get back on my bike. So I thought I might just say about the first 100 days and where I should start. There's a lovely bit from Edge and our friend and colleague there about all organisations should be value-based. So let me tell you what I've found in absolute huge amounts of currency is a county council that has values, as most organisations, public service do, and three that really I've seen led by a real behaviour is to be kind and to care. And I've seen an overwhelming level of kindness and caring of each other and communities, genuinely, and to me, as somebody who's new. And I keep saying, just because I'm a chief executive, I'm privileged to have that role. I was nervous coming into this. I felt vulnerable. I felt probably that, was I good enough to be able to pick up a new challenge, having been somewhere else for so long? So to have people that help with that, some of that vulnerability kind of made me feel very welcome, or kind and caring. We sat on a lovely values chart, but that was an amazing find for me. I wasn't surprised. That was lovely. And something else is I'm probably known as being quite an innovator, hopefully, and quite disruptive in public services and trying things differently, which don't always work, is a notion of daring to be different and to do it differently. But of course, when you do that, you've got to do something which also is an inelegant phrase of Reeves. You've got to start somewhere, arguably anywhere, and you follow it everywhere. You start somewhere, arguably anywhere, and you follow it everywhere. So the notion of being different, showing your difference, being different, doing different things, then, and I've seen some of that, but not enough of it. Then the third value, of which there are others, which is really important to me, is actively learning. Because I think this is a really important thing for all of us. And that global bit that I talked about, it's not the problem of making mistakes. I've made multiple mistakes in 100 days. I continue to make bad judgments. I need to be better every single day. That's not the point. The point is, can you find a way of actively learning, being humble, to reset and go again? And that's a value that I've seen, but I want to see more of it. And I say, I've got your back. And when I say I've got their backs, I mean it, okay? I don't mean we're allowing in our county council catastrophic risk-taking for our children, for our adults, but I do want people to do things differently, because I'm telling you now, if public services in this country, in the environment that we've got, carry on a flat line with the expectations we've got, then our people that we care about the most, that are most vulnerable, are going to get an even rawer deal going forward. We have to do things differently. And some of this stuff I've heard already about faith-based, but also I'm going to talk about other community networks, has got to be the answer of renewal and reimagination of how you deliver more prosperity that's shared by more, in my view. So it's been amazing. I've found and learned so much. It's not negative. It's just my diagnosis. And some of you will go, yeah, it's pretty good. Oxfordshire County Council, as lovely as it is, and people are really frustrated, it's stuck. Right? So it's been recorded and gone out live, or I should have asked that in the first place, shouldn't I? So I'm learning every day. We're stuck as a county council, and I've stopped worrying about my diagnosis of why we're stuck. We just are, and again, it's not because they're bad people or a bad organisation. I think some of it is a lack of confidence, a lack of faith in ourselves to be able to do things because it's tough. So we're going to unstick, and we're going to unstick with all of you and many, many others. And we are, again, a bit about the ability to harness the power of difference with people from different backgrounds, different lived experiences, means that I'm locked into an organisation which I've come to be part of a team that is more hierarchical. And the word siloed is used a lot, but worries about these little lines. I'm defined by who my line manager is. I'm defined by the title on my business card. I'm defined by who I report to. That is power, that is hierarchy. And you know what? Organisations like big, we've got 5,500 staff. We're a multi-million, billion-pound gross business. So you need function, otherwise it becomes chaotic. But you know what? That's not where value and renewal is created. It's created by looking across all of that and lifting up physically and metaphorically those stars who literally, and talent, that aren't interested in this. They just want to help, and they just want to be different, and they just want to use their experiences to improve people's lives. So we're going to go after that, and we're going to go after that together. And I could tell you lots more about FAM. But the third bit, if I get into a presentation, you go, come on, you've got to get going. We haven't got all day. The third bit is, and I hope I'm not arrogant, but maybe I was coming in. I'd done a bit of due diligence, and I said, I can't find anywhere the compelling, authentic narrative for Oxfordshire, including within that the relationship between an amazing city and its county, the rurality, the urban, the deprivation, the asset base, the wealth, the geography, the history, the ideologies, the people, the faith. I can't, where is it? And I was, well, we've got a bit of this 2050 vision, and the city's done loads of stuff, and we've got economic plans. No, where's the story? So we're going to build a story, and I want you to be part of the building of that narrative chapter by chapter. Why? Because it is a binding force of coalition of the final thing I'll share with you, what I think about the county and the partners I've spoken to and my own organisation, is we do this. And I don't know why, and it's got to stop. We spend somewhere, I would say, between 80 and 90% of our time and energy focused on the 5% of things that we disagree about. 80 to 90% of our time, energy, and probably love for each other and getting it right on 5% of things we disagree with. By the way, the 5% is completely appropriate, right, politically, historically, ideologically, to have different views about numbers of houses, where they should be. Bob on, that's absolutely the right thing to, through that difference and difference of reviews, we change together. But it should not dominate our time. You start somewhere, and then you follow it everywhere. I've told you that. Where you start is what binds us together. And we want this city, this county, to be fundamentally greener, healthier, and fairer. And we believe that. And I know we all believe this in this room. So there's some sort. I haven't got to the presentation yet. I told you, you should have had this, and you'd have been on to all the slides. I hope some of that's helpful. If it's not, sorry, but it might frame some of your provocations and thoughts later on. So here we go. All I want to do is just talk about a tale of two cities and two counties, because that's what we've got. This was launched, Oxfordshire's Innovation Engine 2023, is literally launched at the beginning of this week by Advanced Oxford. Why am I putting this up as a startup? Because I'm an economist, and I've come from a place, I've always said, up the road in Coventry in the West Midlands that probably just tracks slightly below Oxford and Oxfordshire in terms of its global reputation for innovation, research and development, and the massive. Look at some of these numbers, even if you're not into the big numbers. These are mind-blowing around the size of wealth creation, job creation, and still the potential to grow even more this innovation R&D for our great universities, but also our startups across Oxford, Harwell, Milton Park, all those amazing places. But we've still got, by latest estimates, over 1 million square foot of requirement for new R&D firms. Now, some of these are literally 2 or 3 people that start them up, and then they become billion-pound businesses. So why do I start here? This is a picture that I knew that Oxford and Oxfordshire has significant economic asset base. It's pretty obvious. We have one of the highest outputs in the entire country. So when you think about the so-called UK PLC and job creation and economic value, you would probably come to think about Oxfordshire and this corridor as being one of the highest wealth creators in the country. So That's story number one. Within it, by the way, there's some worrying trends, which I probably should have said was the other characteristic I found, and maybe we need to be hard with each other and call this out. I think there is some complacency in Oxford and Oxfordshire about we change the world every day. I sit next to people in Christchurch Meadow, genuinely I do, and I start talking to them, and guess what? With their power of their brain and their professional background, they have changed the world. But what I've said about the global position, let's not presume that we can always carry on changing the world in the way we would like. I think we need to be a bit more humble across Oxfordshire and within Oxford to think about that changing circumstance means we must think differently and not just rest on the laurels of what we have as our asset base. But all I'm saying is this is the perception. As an outsider coming in, my perception was very, very clear. Wow, what an amazing city and county that's got everything going for it. It must be livable. It must be amazing. Yes, it is. It's a beautiful place. It's got a huge asset base. But some of you may have seen this, and don't worry about the detail. You're very welcome to have all the slides, and there's many, many, many more. I came into public service. I said this when I'd only been here a couple of days, and I was kindly invited just to speak to a group here. And I came into public service to call out that inequalities and particularly disparity between those that have and those that don't is unacceptable, and it's not inevitable. So if you look at those pink areas there, both for females and also men, for relatively short distance in some of those differences, look at some of the massive gap on life expectancy, which is something at birth we should be able to, irrespective of the postcode we are born into, we should be able to be anything we want to be anyone we want to be, live for as long as anybody else with health, and have that as an access that should not be just by dint of a postcode so highly differentiated. It makes me weep, both internally and externally, that here we are in 2023, despite all the challenges, with massive wealth that I've just told you, that we've got this situation. So all of that gain, not just on innovation, all the other stuff going across our great county, is not shared anywhere near equally. We know that. I'm going to really whip through this. I do want to get into discussion. And you can't see, it doesn't matter. It's the tale of, again, play around with these, as you might be interested in some of the indicators. But across a lot of that, income deprivation, fuel poverty, you get a picture, if you're not brave enough to go under the skin and scratch beneath that surface, of affluence, asset base, above national average. And it's a bit like average temperatures, isn't it? And you've got an oven and a fridge next to each other. We can all talk about, the average temperature because we're all very bright, but I won't necessarily want to put my hand in an oven. So there's something about when you scratch underneath it and you start to understand how people's lives are being adversely affected. But this is the point, and I'm going to rush through it, because if you take nothing else away from these ramblings, just take this. Psychologically, in terms of renewal and what you're doing now, let me tell you, from my experience of being hopefully as close as I can to communities, as I say, for many, many years, when you see pictures of disparity like this, and I'll share a few others, cheek by jowl, with massive opportunity, you have the following. Whose dream inspires are they really? And when there's youngsters in Blackbird Leys that feel those dream inspires as the world is being changed every day, it could be 1,000 miles away from them. The psychology of deprivation, poverty, is actually worse because of the fact you can see the possibilities and opportunities cheek by jowl. It comes back to the one thing I'll say to you, the notion of fairness, and I'll finish on that. And there's a deep sense of unfairness, and quite rightly. And it drives potentially community tension, fractured, and yes, activism, most of which I think is incredibly vibrant from what I've seen in this place, but some of it is dangerous unless we understand it. Let's whip through it, because look, across the pictures I'm going to share the next few is just on deprivation with regards to our so-called sort of super output areas, and it's already been mentioned much more articulately than I can. Despite all of that, we've got 10 wards that are amongst the most deprived in the country. But then you go right down to even more detail, and you're going to find a situation where we are literally seeing situations that would be compared with some of the most challenging wards in the heart of some of the London boroughs and some of our northern metropolitan colleagues. And it is just something which sits so proximus to all of that amazing stuff. We've already talked about this, and I don't know, there's different ways of cutting child poverty. Any levels of child poverty. And do you know what? I was looking back at a report I worked with the Joseph Rowntree Foundation in 2016, and I could just literally get emotional now thinking about it. And we looked nationally at destitution. So that is well beyond even definitions of childhood poverty. We looked at destitution, this notion of not even being able to have shoes on feet, clothes on backs, and food in tummies. And back in 2016, food banks were really proliferating. If you think about some of our statistics now on child poverty, with what I've said about energy crisis, the post-efforts of the pandemic, cost of living, we are now seeing those levels of destitution and statistics that were worrying in 2016 absolutely wider and deeper than even then. And I just think when you see these statistics of in our city, in our county, of those youngsters who literally do not have access to the kind of opportunities they deserve. I'm going to whip through this because you can have a look at them. And it's not that it's just a generational issue. This is intergenerational, and actually not just in terms of those older colleagues that we've got across our areas. And by the way, you can just layer it. You know, remember when I was at school, you have all the text, so you lay it across kind of acetates and stuff. And if you keep layering it across, guess what happens? You can use any factor you like about anything, access to any service opportunity. Guess what? Those deprivation layers start putting those red colours on the same households, the same communities, in our same wards at the time where the others are getting better and better, stronger and stronger with more assets. And it's just not on. So, you know, this is intergenerational. This is just a final few bits before we maybe get into a discussion. So what I'm trying to tell you is we've got an asset base, we've got an economic potency, which is unrivaled, but we've got a set of inequalities also, cheek by jowl, that create massive potential challenges for all of us. So what are we going to do about it? Because we kind of diagnose with evidence, and we can cut it any way we like, that we're not equal, and there's significant disparity. And let me just tell you, and funding always becomes an issue, local government, including Caroline and Susan leading the City Council, myself, Liz as leader in Oxfordshire, and all of our colleagues across the districts across Oxfordshire, have lost somewhere in the region of 40 to 50% of our spending power over 10 years. Let me just say that again. Between 40 and 50% of our spending power, our revenue, our cash to be able to deliver services. I'm not whinging. That is what it is, and we can be better. So this is the point. Don't whinge. What are we going to do about it? The idea of local government, county council, cities, as great as we want to be, with brilliant social workers and professionals, we should have never been, and I don't think we ever will be able to in the future, the first, the middle, and the last resort of all service delivery. Why? Because we can't fund it, but actually we shouldn't be doing it anyway. The delivery of the future of less disparity, less inequality, more fairness and equality and equity across our place is about a very different ecosystem where, yes, we stand up and go, we can pump prime, we can make this happen in statutory terms as the demands become really high on us. But we've got to find ways, civic, faith-based organisations, the brilliance and the passion, the love of people in this room and thousands of other rooms across our county. How do we think about, from not our lens, as good people are, I keep challenging all of my colleagues every single day, we have a lens. It's not because we're bad people, we have a lens. We have a certain type of view of the world. Unless we're reaching out to those people that are living in some of the most challenging circumstances across those deprived wards and saying, it was a brilliant bit about the McDonald's. It's about, because we're good people, we'll go, there you go, this is what you need. Why? Because I'm a professional. And I've got ologies, and I went to university, and I've read all the models, all the theoretical ones. So have some of that. Guess what? We've been doing that for 25 years in public services. Guess what? The inequalities are worse than ever before. So we've got to go to where our communities are and listen, and actively listen. And if renewal is going to happen, it's going to happen from the bottom up, but we don't surrogate our responsibility as public service leaders or civic leaders or faith leaders. We say there's a way in which we can meet in the middle with an ecosystem based on our amazing place, with a story that's compelling about where we're going as a place together. And this, and there's different models, and integrating that is a bit where you're coming from. How can real activism change? Because if we don't do stuff in the meantime, it just spins on design, and none of this stuff will change. And we've just got to find a way of doing stuff. And no one in this room think that when you intervene with 5 families and you change their lives, those videos, it does make the difference. We've got to believe, all of us, that this renewal, this kind of rebirth of a very different thought about how people want to live with each other, close to each other, has to be a way by, yes, there are numbers which scare me, thousands and thousands, we've seen it, but actually every single life that can be changed gives us hope to change another one. Yeah. And do you know what? Spreadsheets are important for people like me. I need to see the numbers. I need to understand it. I charge myself every day to look beyond that spreadsheet, beyond that chart, and there is a face, there is a name, there is a story, there is a family, there is a set of amazing challenges, but above all, there is this amazing belief that the people, our assets, are the answer to the future. Even though they might be living at the moment in such challenging circumstances by dint of where they were born, they can change the world in the same way that the professor that I'll sit next to at Christchurch Meadow is changing the world. Yeah. And I believe that. Yeah. This is the final bit. Yeah, it's the final bit. You'd have all seen this. I hope you've seen it. Has anyone not seen this picture? Look, and it's kind of a bit about good people, just there you go. This paternalism of, because we're good people, we don't like to see this. So this notion of crass interventions and trying to do this thing about inequalities and thinking here about being treated equally. And the boxes, so okay, it's an American example, but seeing the sports field, give everyone the same. I've just told you, people haven't got the same from the point of birth. As soon as they're born in a particular postcode, their trajectory is absolutely stymied at the point of birth, unless something else radically different happens. But the point is, that is just not going to work in terms of that treatment equally. You then get to a point of the notion of equitable treatment and the doubling of the boxes for the little one to be able to then see over. And do you know what? I'm seeing this. I'm seeing it in Oxford City in the county, whereby genuinely thinking about that to eliminate some of that disparity and inequality and really delivering thoughtfully about how we can provide that is what I call the meantime, the interim stage. It's not, though, where we need to be. We need to be here. Okay, this is a symbol of a fence, which has been taken down and a visibility to look through. So we're all, in that circumstance, the same. That is what the vision of amazing, green, healthy, fairer places should be. That we are literally all on that even playing field together and find a way that through non-paternalism of I will fix you because that's my job, we will fix each other. And we are literally together on that sports pitch or the playing field or whatever you want to use as an analogy, and we can be better and we will be better together. So I've been literally, that's me, you can contact me any day, genuinely, I do say this, I've got an open door policy in the County Council. If anyone is really upset, apart from the A34, and don't talk to me about filters but no, seriously, if you are upset about something, all I say to people, and David can attest to this, and anybody else that's a county council employee, I just say this, I only have one psychological contract with 5,500 colleagues, 10,000 including schools. I just say this, you can say anything to me. You can, if you've got the confidence and trust in me, I've hopefully got integrity to share that only in a way you want me to. You can say and be as critical as you like, but I'm not prepared to have a full stop. So you say what you like, I want a semicolon. The next bit is, and this is what I think we can do better and differently together. Thanks, everyone. Look, I've got a bit of time, I think, before coffee or whatever. And I do have to head off relatively soon afterwards, but did it land to help me, help each other? What? Any thoughts, any observations? Yeah, and say who you are as well, I don't know everybody.
Yeah, I'm Al Corey from Stonehouse.
Hi.
Hi. And I'm director of the University Science Park.
Oh, wow, it's good to see you.
And we've met before.
Yeah.
Probably you won't remember me.
Quite a long time ago.
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah. Wow.
I've dragged you here.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you. Oh, that's really kind. Oh, I'm privileged that I am here. So thank you. Really good to see you. Any other comments or observations? Was it helpful to provoke and give a framework for? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because we have to be hopeful, don't we? Yeah. Hi.
So I'm Greg West. I'm also from St Ed's. I guess what I'm keen to know while we've got this privilege of having you standing in front of us is how do we stay connected? How do we hear from you what you're seeing and how we should help, and how do we? This is possibly the answer to the second bit, but how do we engage your help and your services and your support to make the things we want to do possible?
Oh, what a great question. There's such a vast county, and I've been out as much as I can, but just coverage for these networks to keep connected. But genuinely, as soon as I said I'd come back, there's something about all of us saying what we're going to do and sticking with it. There's no way I'd have missed this, even though I had to cite. Why? Because I believe this is an important set of networks. So don't just talk about it, do it. So I think there's something about holding us to account for saying if you're going to be somewhere, do it. But a reality check that in this ecosystem, this kind of matrix world of connecting people, there is a reality to this about how our coverage can go. So what I would say is the best way of doing it is to find ways of, through little case study examples, into me, into the county council, into city council colleagues, of things that just need maybe a little bit more. Sometimes it's funded, but sometimes it's just in kind. We think this could grow. People think they're never going to be looked at. I will promise you that those kinds of promised opportunities to make difference. So please just engage with us with some ideas. Well, if we just had a little bit from the county council or the city together or Cherwell or Southend, we could just do some. Please just do that with us. The final bit I was saying, that, look, I've been, because it's directly to your point, and I'm a really candid speaker, and look, I know I'm Marmite. I know it's a phrase that's used a lot. I hope to think that I'm value-based. No one ever leaves a conversation with me going, I'm actually quite sure what Martin was thinking there. I'm very clear. I hope I'm kind, but others will judge that. So I've been talking a lot about presence and contact and the fact that Oxfordshire County Council, which I'm part of, is ultimately a people business and it's a place-based business. And why am I talking about that? Because the pandemic, for all of us, has created new opportunities, and I would say some challenges about remote working and independent location working. But let me say what I want, because it answers your question about coverage, connection, following it everywhere. I don't need 5,500 colleagues in Oxfordshire County Council being in County Hall or one of our buildings every day with their heads down on a computer. I've said this to David and others, with their heads down on a computer, banging away on an email and a message. Why? Because it completely lacks the visceral human condition of contact. Do it somewhere else where you've got ability to maybe spend a bit of time with friends and family, and you've got the flexibility at home, you don't have to travel. I don't want people coming in to our environment and be on a headset, on a Teams or a Zoom call, which 5 or 6 other people on that call are sitting probably 2 or 3 desks away. I don't need that. So I don't need to see people for them to be productive. I'm not in the Jacob Rees-Mogg school of, I can't see you, therefore you're not productive. But I need my colleagues, our team, with you to be present when they're here and to be out. I do not want them to feel like their ability at work is put in four walls of a building. I want them out meeting community groups. And I really mean this. This is not me just. I'm trying to lead by example. I want all of us. We've got people that have built things, great, designed in many ways. They've worked on community projects. And when I speak to them and say, when did you last checked in? They're not bad people. They said, I've never been on site. I've never gone to that community. I've got youngsters coming in who have never been into a work environment post-university or post-college or care leavers, and the lack of ability for us to wrap a metaphoric and a physical arm around them and say, let's help you move through your first couple. They've not even met some of their line managers ever. And why am I saying all this? It's about connection. It's about viral connectivity, which is positive. You get one person connected. This visual connection today, you can decide whether you can trust me or not, even in that initial set of conversations. And I've now got the guilty knowledge of contact, which means if I don't follow stuff through, I can't hide behind a spreadsheet. So all I'm saying is I'm trying to change our culture of people who say to me, "Bum, that's not my job." Local government, I'm going to shut up at this point, so I'm going to go on. Local government and public services, in many ways, are some of the most complex things you could ever imagine. We have over 600 lines of service. No private sector organisation would be stupid enough to set them up like that, right? But I keep saying, we are so profoundly simple. Every single day, every single local authority colleague comes into work in law and in value and conscience to do one thing, which is to try and improve the lives of the people that we serve on social, economic, environmental and health terms, particularly those that are most vulnerable every single day. Now, last time I looked, that's a pretty simple mission. How do you do that? Not by being on a computer, not by saying, that's my job, I can't, by being out there and connecting. So you'll see a lot more of us. How are we doing? Is it coffee time? Or there's a few more. Oh, there's a couple. Should we do 2 quick ones? Go on, go on. Hello, who are you?
So a good question is, how can we best help you to help us best? I'm being serious.
No,
we're not interested in we might be interested in a whole load of things, but we want to know how we can collectively serve you in serving us best.
Oh, that's lovely. Honesty Action, don't give me a full stop, give me a semicolon. And we could do this together in a particular area. And if you can do that with me and with us, we've got an amazing team that can build that previous sort of picture of how civic, faith-based community organisations can work together. And in terms of resilience, which a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and I have a particular view, we all talk, we've all got faith, those that have got not faith, whatever the denomination, there's a lot of talk about where people find their own resilience from. And there's a lot of academic literature about this. And it answers your question directly. I don't sense resilience as a personal thing, actually. I see it as a community thing in the sense of my resilience. So if I know that I've got people in this room that every day when I make failings, because I will, and I get things wrong, there's a sense of they've got my back. You know, so praying for me, giving me some support to be able to be better. Do you know what? That's more than government giving me a couple of million quid for a scheme. It makes me feel like it's possible. So please do that for me and for my colleagues, actually. I think there's one other final question, and then we'll put to finish. Hi.
My name's Steve Gallagher.
Hi, Steve.
I work with Christians Against Poverty. We teach a life skills course to try and help people make better choices in their lives. And we refer people to lots of services. So we talk with some of your colleagues. It seems to me what's happening at the moment with so many cuts that you've mentioned over the last 10 years, that some services have been cut to the level of almost ineffectiveness. Because there's always a certain amount of administration that needs to be done, and you've always got an overhead of that, everybody does. But if you cut things too much, the administration takes up too much time, and you haven't got enough boots on the ground. And it seems to me it's happening all across the board, really, with all kinds of charities and organisations. How can we make things effective when they're small and they've been cut down?
Oh, so your diagnosis, Steve, is absolutely bang on. I've been really, it might not surprise you because you've only met me for a little bit of time. I'm quite outspoken to government on some of the policy and the funding, but also we have to take responsibility of those decisions politically, locally. We call it salami slicing, which is a horrible phrase, but public service and local government over the last decade has been absolutely stymied by salami slicing. So complex demands go up, particularly in the area you're working on. So we say we'll take 20% out, 40% out. Then we've got 3 people that were 9 trying to do more. It's ridiculous. Why? Because actually we let people down. We don't deliver what we need to. You're right, the bureaucracy then almost overtakes the actual delivery of it. But above all, we set up our own professionals and public services to fail in that environment, and we also let down the people. So my view on this a lot is, how do you do it? You have an honest set of conversations sometimes about commissioning in a different way with an entire new model, because actually you just say, look, we simply cannot do this anymore. It needs to be done by others. Maybe at slightly lower cost, but done. That's number one. Number two, and this is hard, I would ask all of you, and I know you'll do this because you've reached out to me and you'll reach out to others. There is a lot of protectionism, and I tell you what, that is as true, I think, for faith organisations, non-faith, certainly charitable social enterprises, amazing people that change their worlds and people's worlds by their, probably over a cup of coffee in their kitchen, but they're very protectionist of their own area. So from my lens, they'll be coming to me and going, mine, I need you to commission into us. I'm saying, but there's 6 other organisations that offer exactly the same advice, counselling service for the same cohort. If you come together and you share back office systems, you share your articles of association, the things you do together, and come to me with a federated approach, you got me. Because that then starts to create much more effectiveness and value. Now, that's a new model. It's not without its risks, because it means people look at each other and go, do you know what? I'm going to fold on this, because I now know that I can deliver something better by folding maybe my own organisation, my input, and getting alongside somebody else who maybe is more effective at delivering it. That's hard. Why? Final comment. Loss is really, really difficult. If you think about a narrative of loss and giving up rather than receiving and taking, it's one of the hardest things individuals, professionals, and particularly politicians find. Our narrative must be to get to, not away from, and to succeed and not feel there's a sense of loss. That's when we're one team. One team, one Oxfordshire, relationship between the city and Oxford. I think if I come back to you in a year's, 2 years, 3 years' time, I think we'll shift some of that stuff. Yeah. And that's why I get out of bed. That's why I want us to continue to be renewed. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
All right. where we got to at the end there was reminding me of something we heard last year. I did get confused when we had the mayor of Bristol, who's Marvin Rees. I got it's very close, Martin, to your name. But, he said that as a politician, he invited people to come to him with both a big ask and a big offer. It just resonates with what you were saying about the semicolon, that if we can pair those things together, needs that we see, but the contribution that we can make, then we're leaning into a better future. And something that's very much in my heart, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about this from Paul after the break, around how actually churches have collaborated together much more effectively in the city of Southampton, things that we can learn from there. There are some things that we'll only be able to offer and some things that we'll only be able to ask if we work more collaboratively. And I just loved where things ended there. I just want to say I agree, and I do hope and pray that out of this room there'll be more collaboration, and maybe some of us do need to, well, talking about loss, you know, we as Christians, we share a faith in which actually death leads to new life, right? There's something better the other side of laying things down. It's like a fundamental belief for us. So maybe we could lead in that and help to shape a new way of things working in our society.